Life's a twisty journey, and boy did I get more than I bargained for. One evening, filled with the promise of shared secrets between me and Caroline, spiraled into a tale of doubled betrayals. As I stood there, reveling in the joy of expanding our family, I dropped my own bombshell. A secret child, set to join our family under the most unconventional circumstances. Little did I expect Caroline's wrath, turning my dream of a big, happy family into a battleground. This is my story. The commencement of my family's tale. Upon entering the abode, my spouse's enthusiasm was palpable. She hastened to greet me with an affectionate kiss before swiftly returning to the culinary domain to add the final touches to our evening repast. "I prepared your preferred dish tonight, and guess what? I have some exhilarating news to share," she exclaimed, her eyes shimmering with anticipation. "That is truly fantastic, my dear," I replied with a smile. Coincidentally, I also possess some momentous news. Perchance we should partake in a dual celebration. It happened to be Friday evening, signifying the conclusion of the work week. While she concluded her tasks in the kitchen, I proceeded to the bedroom to freshen up and change into more comfortable attire. With tomorrow being a day off, I eagerly looked forward to a leisurely evening with my wife, brimming with intimacy and discussions about our respective news. The thrill of sharing and celebrating together filled me with anticipation. My name is Jack Martinez, and my wife is Caroline. We have been blissfully married for 7 years. Both of us have reached the age of 30. Standing at a height of 62 inches and weighing approximately 210 pounds, give or take a pound depending on the day, I consider myself to be in fairly good physical condition. While I do not perceive myself as a heartthrob, I have been informed on numerous occasions that I possess above-average looks. On the other hand, Caroline stands at a height of 56 inches and maintains a lovely weight of 110 pounds. She, too, is quite fit, much like myself. We are both regular attendees at the gym. Caroline possesses long blonde tresses, captivating brown eyes, and a stunning figure that never fails to attract attention. As of late, I have a strong inclination regarding the nature of her news. We recently embarked on the journey of starting a family. Caroline ceased taking birth control pills a few months ago, and ever since our intimate encounters have significantly increased. Now, do not misunderstand me. Prior to this change, we were not exactly abstinent during our first year of marriage. We engaged in such activities almost every night, gradually decreasing to an average of 3 times a week thereafter. However, ever since Caroline stopped taking birth control, our intimacy had increased even more. The only times we paused were when I had to travel for work. Fortunately, my job as a mechanical engineer didn't require much travel. I usually arrived at the office by 7 a.m. and left around 5 p.m., maintaining a consistent schedule. Occasionally, I would attend conferences or seminars, but these were infrequent, happening about once every quarter. Recently, I was promoted to an engineering manager, overseeing a team of 5 junior engineers, 3 engineering technicians, and a few secretaries, including Caroline, who served as my personal secretary. Meanwhile, my wife worked as a paralegal at a local law firm. Among 5 lawyers, she was one of 3 paralegals, and her schedule mirrored mine in terms of regularity. The only changes occurred when she had to stay late due to important cases. After freshening up and changing clothes, I entered the kitchen just as Caroline was setting the table for dinner. It was clear that she had gone above and beyond for this evening. I suspected she had taken the afternoon off to prepare. On the menu was chicken scallopine, accompanied by a delightful Caesar salad and garlic bread. To top it off, she had made tiramisu for dessert and even opened a couple of bottles of excellent Merlot to complement the meal. Caroline's excitement was palpable, evident not only in the delicious food but also in her appearance. She was dressed in one of her most attractive dresses, hinting at a night filled with passion and excitement. I knew she had some remarkable news to share, and I couldn't wait for our conversation later that evening. After we finished dinner and dessert, I offered to help Caroline clear the table and clean up the kitchen. We poured ourselves more wine and moved to the living room, eager to share our respective news. Sitting on the couch, we engaged in the usual back and forth about who would go first. Caroline's exuberant enthusiasm made it effortless for her to offer her help. She could barely contain her excitement, her sheer happiness practically emanating from her. I half expected her news to burst forth spontaneously. "We did it, sweetheart! I'm pregnant! We're going to have a baby!" she exclaimed, her joy palpable. "That's incredible!" I exclaimed in response. Overwhelmed with happiness, Caroline threw herself into my arms, showering me with passionate kisses as we embraced, sharing in the overwhelming joy. I couldn't wait to share my own news with her. With a radiant smile and an infectious enthusiasm, I revealed my own thrilling announcement. "I got my secretary, Eva, pregnant as well," I disclosed to my wife, my excitement evident in my tone. "Since she's single and doesn't want to raise a child alone, we've decided that she'll give her baby to us to raise. It'll be like they're twins since you and Eva will be delivering at about the same time. They'll actually be twins in every way except for blood. And since I'm the father, custody won't be an issue, especially since she's willing to sign off on me taking custody. All she wants is to be involved as more of a favored aunt to the child. We'll probably need to explain it to him or her when they're old enough to understand and accept it, but that shouldn't be a problem." I eagerly awaited my wife's response, but instead of the happiness I anticipated, I was met with a severe lack of joy. In fact, she appeared angry. It puzzled me. Here I was sharing news of our family expanding, and yet her reaction was one of extreme hostility. I was genuinely taken aback. Her distressed expression gave me pause, but I felt she needed to know the full extent of the situation, hoping it might turn her upset back into happiness. Her initial ultrasound also indicated that she was having twins. I continued attempting to maintain my excitement despite my wife's unsettling reaction. "Although it's still too early to determine the sex, there's a good likelihood that at least one of them is a girl. Maybe there will be one of each. Just think about having the daughter you've always wanted, and I can have the son I've always wanted. Whichever gender the baby is, it will be a blessing, and we will finally have the large family you've always desired." However, instead of the joyful reaction I expected, my wife's anger only seemed to grow. I couldn't understand what was happening, and then, like a sudden outburst, her pent-up anger exploded. "You deceitful cheater! You cheated on me with that woman from your office," she accused, her voice shaking with fury. "What were you thinking? Do you really expect me to raise her children? Are you out of your mind?" The situation quickly deteriorated from there. For the next 30 minutes, she hurled insults at me, using every possible insult in the English language. It seemed like she even came up with a few new ones on the spot. This was far from the scenario I had imagined. It was becoming increasingly clear that my hopes for a night of intimacy were fading fast. Nevertheless, I remained determined. "Darling, why don't we go to the bedroom and celebrate our good news together?" I suggested, trying to salvage the evening. "I believe that after a night of intimacy, we will have a better idea of what our lives will be like with 3 new additions to our family." To my surprise, not only did she reject my proposal vehemently, but she even threatened to banish me from our bed. If she didn't want to share a bed with me, she could find somewhere else to sleep. Eventually, consumed by anger, she stormed off to the spare bedroom with her pillows. I was genuinely puzzled by her behavior. However, feeling justified in my actions, I rolled over and slept peacefully for the rest of the night. The next morning, my attempts to persuade my wife to come back to our bed were met with continued resistance. She harbored an irrational anger towards me, and her refusal to communicate only deepened my confusion. Recognizing that her emotions were beyond my control, I decided to take advantage of the pleasant weather and went out for a round of golf. I met some interesting people there, including a man, his wife, and her sister. We quickly formed a bond and got to know each other on a different level in less than 3 hours. Upon my return home, I was surprised to find that my garage door opener was not working. Perplexed by this unexpected issue, I investigated further, checking the batteries with no success. When I tried to enter through the front door, I was met with an even more puzzling sight: several suitcases neatly stacked on the porch. Despite my confusion, I brushed off the strangeness and attempted to unlock the front door, only to realize that it was securely locked. Although not entirely unexpected since I usually left through the garage in the mornings, what struck me as odd was that my key didn't fit the locks. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that the locks seemed new, a detail that Caroline had never mentioned. Determined to enter the house, I set aside my bewilderment and focused on finding a solution. Feeling tired and sweaty from the day's activities, I grabbed my saws all from the truck and quickly cut through the door around the doorknob and deadbolt. With the obstacle removed, I made a mental note to replace the door and went inside, looking forward to a much-needed shower and change of clothes. Upon entering, Caroline launched into another outburst, accusing me of being unfaithful. I struggled to comprehend the source of her ideas. While there was a fleeting connection with Janice, it was not significant. Despite my attempt to suggest a shower together to ease the tension, Caroline adamantly refused. It occurred to me that she may be dealing with deeper psychological issues that required attention. Planning to discuss counseling later, I showered to alleviate the stress of the day. Upon returning to the bedroom, I found Caroline packing her things. When questioned, she stated that since I wouldn't leave, she would instead. She had already arranged to stay with her sister. My explanation of her behavior being due to pregnancy hormones was rejected. Despite my belief that her pregnancy was influencing her actions, she dismissed my reasoning. I hoped that after giving birth and seeing my secretary's twins, she would embrace motherhood. Perplexed by her sudden departure, I watched her leave, unsure of what to do next. A few days later, I decided to have Eva move in with me. With Caroline gone and Eva pregnant, it seemed like the right decision, especially since the twins were mine. However, my plans were disrupted when I was served with divorce papers a week later. Caroline was seeking ownership of the house, 18 years of maintenance, alimony, 90% of our savings and investments, and $1,500 a month in child support. She was enforcing our prenuptial agreement, specifically the infidelity clause. I was fully aware of its existence. My wife Caroline's voice broke the tense silence in the lawyer's office, marking the beginning of our first meeting to discuss our impending divorce. As we sat across from each other, I couldn't help but acknowledge Caroline's powerful advantage. Our meticulously crafted prenuptial agreement, designed to make infidelity sting deeply, provided her with ample evidence of my indiscretions, giving her every reason to use it mercilessly. Despite the gravity of the situation, I couldn't help but question her determination. "Are you absolutely certain about pursuing this path, Caroline?" I asked, hoping to detect a hint of hesitation. Her response was swift and unforgiving. "You cheated on me! You got your secretary pregnant and had the audacity to think I would agree to raise her children," she retorted, her words filled with indignation and betrayal. "Caroline, right here, right now, I am presenting you with a one-time offer," I declared, my tone resolute. "Let's call off the divorce, reconcile, and raise all 3 children together as our own. We can leave the past behind and commit to each other once more. These 3 babies will be solely ours. Yes, Eva can play a role as the favored aunt to the twins, but that's as far as it goes. You will be the loving mother to all 3, and I will be the devoted father. And who knows, maybe we'll even have 1 or 2 more. The decision is yours, yes or no." "Damn you, I will not raise any of your children with that woman," Caroline spat back, her anger palpable. I exchanged a knowing look with my lawyer, confirming our understanding. Fortunately for me, I had secured the most formidable, ruthless, and determined legal representation money could buy. While it may appear that I am portrayed as the villain eagerly awaiting my comeuppance, withhold your judgment. Things are about to take an interesting turn. My lawyer opened her briefcase with a grin reminiscent of a barracuda poised for a feeding frenzy. "Since your client has declined," Caroline's lawyer and I watched as she slid the papers across the table, announcing it as our new proposal. It took a few moments for both Caroline and her lawyer to read and understand the document. Suddenly, Caroline erupted, causing their smug expressions to turn into panic, just as I had described earlier. I couldn't help but notice the anticipation in my lawyer, Agata's eyes. Yes, she was truly ruthless. Caroline's lawyer turned to her, his expression filled with sheer panic. Caroline stammered about DNA testing. I nodded in confirmation, and Agata produced an audio recorder, placing it on the table with her finger hovering over the record button. Caroline asked how we could ensure that the child would be hers and not the Cox's. The voice on the recording belonged to Martin Hill, a lawyer at Caroline's workplace. Caroline's voice responded confidently, assuring that Martin looked enough like her husband, so he would never suspect he was raising another man's child. She made it clear that she had no intention of dealing with or paying for children herself. However, she did express her desire to pass along her inheritance to the child once they became an adult at the age of 18. Caroline believed that by then, she and her husband would have a few more children together, leaving him unable to do anything about it without facing consequences. Martin questioned whether Caroline's husband would find out about their affair. Caroline's voice echoed through the recording, stating that they had been having an affair for the past 3 years, and her husband had remained oblivious. She was confident that any child they had would closely resemble her husband, ensuring that he would never suspect the truth. As the recording played, the expression on Caroline's face was priceless. Aita then presented a motion to conduct a DNA test on Caroline's unborn child, and another motion to legally compel Martin Hill to provide child support, seeking a monthly payment of $2,000. Considering his accomplished career as an attorney, this request appeared reasonable. Following the rejection of the previous proposal by your client, I am presenting an alternative. The resolution necessitates the execution of a postnuptial agreement by both parties. This agreement will bring an end to the ongoing divorce proceedings, allowing the couple to remain married until the last child graduates from high school, at a minimum. Should both parties agree, they have the option to continue their marital union. The postnuptial agreement will incorporate terms from the prenuptial agreement, albeit with some modifications. Notably, the marriage will become open, permitting my client to pursue other relationships provided he informs his wife in advance, with the same privilege extended to the wife. Any children conceived thereafter will be the joint responsibility of the married couple. However, any accidental conceptions, whether brought to full term or terminated, will activate the stipulations outlined in the postnuptial agreement as concluded by Aita. I observed as Caroline's countenance paled, her astonishment evident as her extramarital affair was brought to light. A wry smile played on my lips, taking on a more assertive tone as I continued. In the event your client rejects this proposal, we are fully prepared to enforce the prenuptial agreement on our part. Aita asserted firmly that her client's affair had commenced nearly 3 years before my client's transgressions. In fact, he only engaged in his affair after meticulously documenting his wife's betrayal and her intention to conceive a child with another man. Should she opt for divorce, she should anticipate facing financial instability and homelessness. Additionally, evidence in the form of videotapes depicting her involvement with a man other than her husband will be disseminated to her acquaintances. We are prepared to take decisive measures to ensure her complete downfall. Caroline glanced at me, signaling her readiness for me to address the situation. Caroline, you have orchestrated a plan for me to raise a child that is not biologically mine, while the child you carry is innocent in this deception. I cannot bear the responsibility for your actions. However, I am willing to accept the child as a stepchild in our home, on the condition that your partner takes on the financial obligations. He will be responsible for monthly child support, health insurance, medical expenses, and education. Although I doubt he will seek visitation, it will be an option if desired. He will also provide for the child's college education. This is the consequence of his choices. Despite claiming to avoid parenthood, he will now bear the burden. As for you, your punishment for betrayal is to raise my children as your own, except biologically. Only those present in this room and Eva will be aware of the truth. You found it amusing to have me raise another man's child. Now you will find solace in raising another woman's children. When Eva wishes to visit the children, she will be welcomed into our home. This is your atonement. You have the audacity to seek a divorce due to my infidelity while carrying on a lengthy affair yourself. How hypocritical. My affair only began after discovering your betrayal. I overheard your plans to have a child with another man, ensuring it was not mine. Eva was willing to have my children, as long as she was not left to raise them alone. 18.5 years later, the truth about Eva is finally revealed. Diana's voice faltered. But what about Uncle Nat? Laura interjected. Eva had twins, with Diana being born a minute before Laura. Donnie, Caroline's son, entered the picture 3 days earlier. There were many surprised faces when we introduced the triplets to our friends and family. Eventually, everyone accepted the situation, although there were some questions about the origin of Diana and Laura's red hair due to those recessive genes. No, Uncle Nat came into the picture later. Aunt Eva became pregnant while she was single, and she believed it was best for you to be raised by a married couple like us. As we shared a close friendship, I made the decision to take you both in, knowing that your mother was unable to care for you on her own at the time. By the time she met and married your Uncle Nat, it would have been too disruptive to change the situation. Now that you are aware of the truth, please understand that your mother and I love you just as much as if you were our biological children. This fact remains unchanged. It's important to remember that your aunt and uncle have their own family, but you will always have a special place in their hearts. Despite this, we are all one family. I believe that you were intelligent enough to comprehend the situation. Did we really need to reveal the truth? Perhaps not, as there were valid arguments on both sides. However, we ultimately decided that it was best for you to know, so we shared the reality with you. We also disclosed to Donnie that I was not his biological father, a conversation that was separate. He never encountered the individual in question. Despite the individual's attempts to contest the paternity suit, DNA evidence proved otherwise. He tried to avoid making payments, but such actions are not looked upon favorably by the courts. They have the authority to enforce their decisions through sheriff's deputies who can make unwelcome visits to individuals at their residences and workplaces. In terms of the concept of an open marriage, I did have a few additional encounters with Janice and Eva while I was dating Caroline for about a year until she met Nat. I am quite confident that Caroline remained faithful throughout. I kept a close eye on her, and once my affair with Eva ended, I refrained from pursuing any other relationships. I assumed that Caroline had learned from the situation, and I made it clear that I would resume monitoring if any signs of infidelity were detected. To the best of my knowledge, she remained loyal, and I continued to keep a watchful eye. Additionally, she made efforts to strengthen our bond, where we both relied solely on each other. Martin Hill disappeared shortly after Jack's 18th birthday. He had already set up a college fund for Jack, but despite our offers of visitation, Martin showed no interest. Speculations were rife about his relocation to the East Coast, yet a more reliable rumor placed him just 5 miles beyond the coastline. This particular piece of information was known only to a select few. I exercised patience in seeking justice. I couldn't allow him to escape his responsibilities of child support and college fund payments. As for Caroline and myself, it has been 19 years since our tumultuous ordeal. I meticulously conducted my investigations and found no evidence of further wrongdoing. Surprisingly, she transformed into a devoted wife and mother, contemplating early retirement once the children leave the nest. It seems plausible. Some may consider me weak for forgiving her, but what good would come from seeking revenge? Perhaps Ava and I could have pursued a relationship, but that is irrelevant now. What truly matters is that I did not end up raising another man's child. While I played the role of a father, I approached it from a different perspective. Martin took care of the financial aspects of raising him, while I took the opportunity to ensure he was brought up with integrity, avoiding the path of becoming a scoundrel. Additionally, by staying with Caroline, I ensured that our 3 children were raised in a loving environment with both parents, a victory that transcended external judgment. Epilogue. Another decade has passed. This is my confession. I must admit, as I sit here reflecting on my past actions, I cannot help but feel remorse. In hindsight, I realized that adultery is a destructive path, filled with pain and consequences that extend far beyond the initial act. Even innocent individuals can suffer as a result. In my case, it was the children. My affair with Janice and the subsequent revelation of Caroline's betrayal shook the very foundations of our marriage, leaving scars that took years to heal. Looking back, I acknowledge the foolishness of my actions, the self-centeredness that blinded me to the hurt I inflicted upon my wife and family. Yes, my wife also erred, but I speak only for myself now. I am haunted by the realization that my momentary lapse in judgment caused irreparable harm to the trust and closeness we once shared. Caroline's forgiveness and our eventual reconciliation were not without challenges. The journey to rebuilding our relationship was arduous and lengthy, filled with moments of uncertainty and doubt. However, it had to be our children who have grown and flourished independently that bring me joy and inner strength. Despite the tumultuous process of raising them, they are thriving, their spirits unbroken by their parents' mistakes. I am overwhelmed with pride as I witness their achievements, and their laughter serves as a soothing remedy for the wounds of the past. As I look towards the future, my only hope is that they will learn from my errors, cherish the sacred vows of marriage, and honor the trust of their partners. May they never succumb to the temptations that led me astray. May they cultivate relationships founded on honesty, respect, and unwavering devotion. Ultimately, I am grateful for the second chance I have been granted, for the opportunity to rectify the wrongs of my past and embrace the blessings of my present. Although the scars of my transgressions may never completely fade, I find solace in knowing that redemption is attainable. Love, genuine and unconditional, possesses the power to conquer even the darkest of sins. Subscribe to our channel so that your second shaft doesn't cheat on you. And go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.